Question 4. So you will always get an impressions question in the exam. This one is, what impressions do you get of the Debs, which is the Irish prom, in this part of the extract? Okay, you must refer to language and the text to support your answer. Remember, this exam is all about quotes. So the impressions question, there will always be one impressions question in the exam. It can be on questions 2, 3 or 4, and it'll be worth 5 or 10 marks. So remember, impressions means the kind of view or opinion you have of a place or person when you read what is said about them. One of my tips for this question is look for verbs and adjectives. So I don't mean if it says I talked to someone, but if it said I ranted at someone, zoom in, yeah? So an example question and answer would be, what impression do you get of Connell with the quote, he stuttered over his speech? So if you'd have just said, if the quote would have been, Connell delivered his speech, there's probably not going to be a lot you can zoom in on. But stuttered, what does that tell me? Well, this tells me that Connell feels nervous. So again, if you look at this answer now, the green is the link to the question, impression. The blue is my opinion of Connell, and my red is the quote to back up my opinion. Remember, if you just put Connell's nervous with no quote, you won't get a mark. So if we look at another one, what impressions does the writer create of Marianne in these lines? Let's say lost her temper and snapped back. So both of those probably show me what? They probably show me Marianne's angry. So I've got one impression I get of Marianne is I think she can get angry quickly as she lost her temper and snapped back. Again, my green is my link to my question. My yellow is my opinion of Marianne. And my blue is the quotes to back up my opinion. A lot of students think it's one quote per opinion. But if you've got 2 or 3 or 4 quotes that really show you a particular opinion of someone, shove them all in. Another one, the tears rolled down Marianne's cheeks. What does that tell me? Pretty simply, it suggests she's probably upset. She's probably crying. So I've put one impression I get of Marianne is she's upset. She seems to be crying as tears roll down her cheeks. Again, green is the impression. The green is my link to my question. Yellow is my opinion of Marianne, and blue is my quotes to back up my opinion. Again, second tip, and it's similar to the earlier question, if the quote is obvious, there's no need to explain. So let's say the question is the same one we just looked at. What impressions do you get of Marianne in this part of the extract? If the quote was, Marianne was jealous of the girls going to the Debs, you can literally put, one impression I have of Marianne is that she was jealous of the girls going to the Debs. You won't get a mark for just putting the quote down. So do a little sentence starter with the word impression is, and you'll get the mark. Okay, so going back to R1, what impressions do you get of the Debs in this part of the extract? I'll read it through. While I read it through, if you want to pause the video, highlight any opinions or feelings you have of the Debs based on what's in the text. Eventually, the night of the Debs came. Rachel wore an extravagantly expensive dress and Connell stood in her front garden while her mother took their photograph. Rachel kept mentioning that he was going to Trinity, and her father showed him some golf clubs. Then they went to the hotel and ate dinner. Everyone got very drunk and Lisa passed out before dessert. Under the table, Rob showed Eric and Connell naked photographs of Lisa on his phone. Eric laughed and tapped parts of Lisa's body on screen with his fingers. Connell sat there looking at the phone and said quietly, "Bit messed up showing these to people, isn't it?" With a loud sigh, Rob locked the phone and put it back in his pocket. "You've gotten awfully gay about these things later," he said. At midnight, sloppy drunk from hypocritically disgusted by the drunkenness of everyone around him, Connell wandered out the ballroom and down a corridor into the smoking garden. He had lit a cigarette and was in the process of shredding some low-hanging leaves from a nearby tree when the door slid open and Eric came up to join him. Eric gave a knowing laugh on seeing him and then sat on an upturned flower pot and lit a cigarette himself. "Shame Marianne didn't come in the end," Eric said. Connell nodded, hating to hear her name mentioned, unwilling to respond. "What was going on there with you and Marianne?" said Eric. "Were you dating her for a laugh?" Connell hardly recognised his own voice when he said, "I don't know what you're talking about." "Do you think we don't know you were with her?" he said. "Sure, everyone knows." Connell paused and took another drag on his cigarette. This was probably the most horrifying thing Eric could have said to him, not because it ended his life, but because it didn't. He knew then that the secret for which he had sacrificed his own happiness and the happiness of another person had been trivial all along and worthless. He and Marianne could have walked down the school corridors hand in hand, and with what consequence? Nothing really. No one cared. He had treated her like a dirty secret. So highlight yeah, 4 or 5 things, opinions, and then back it up with quotes, impressions or opinions you have on the Irish prom. And so, example, again, this is a made up quote, but just showing you structure. I'm going to pretend in the quote it said every boy wore a tie. So I've put one impression I get of the Debs is that it's a formal event. So formal because they have to wear a tie. The quote, every boy wore a tie, tells me this. Here are the quotes I'm going to pick up on. Rachel wore a really expensive dress. Everyone got drunk. They were shown rude photos by one of the guys. The ones at the ballroom, I don't know what you're talking about. So let's look at them. Again, we're doing that thing with being a human dictionary. So Rachel wore an extravagantly expensive dress. So what does extravagantly mean? Extravagantly. Excessive, high, unreasonable, outrageous. Yeah? So basically ridiculously expensive. Okay? So I've put one impression I get is that it's an important event for Rachel. Extravagantly expensive dress tells the reader she spent an outrageous amount of money on it. So again, my blue is my impression, my yellow is my quote, and my green is explaining why that why my sort of quote is what it is. And the second one is the mother took a photograph. So again, it's the same impression. It's an important event. They took the photograph. This shows the family want to remember how they looked on the night of the Debs. Another impression I've got is that everyone was drunk. So everyone was drinking alcohol. So the quote is, everyone got very drunk and Lisa passed out before the Debs. So I'm going to zoom into the word everyone. So what does everyone mean? Well, it basically means that every single person was drunk. So I put one impression I get as the Debs is it was alcohol fueled. The quote, everyone got drunk, shows that every single person had consumed a lot of alcohol. And I'm going to add the second part of the quote. Before dessert tells the reader they have been drinking quickly as Lisa passed out quite early in the evening. Okay, so and then I'll do one more. The other quote I've got is ballroom. So it took place in the ballroom. So I put another impression I have is that the Debs takes place at quite a traditional hotel. The fact that it has a ballroom suggests it might be quite formal. The other quote you could have talked about was the sort of like disrespectful, misogynistic thing about teenage boys showing the other boys photos of his naked girlfriend. So you could have said there, one impression is it's almost like a boys' locker room or misogynistic or disrespectful to women, and you could have explained that.